I never thought silence could feel so loud. That afternoon when she looked me straight in the eye and told me never to go up there, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not even confusion. Just this quiet unease that settles in your chest when you know someone is hiding something from you. She was standing at the bottom of the attic stairs, one hand gripping the railing like she was guarding a vault. Her voice was calm but her eyes were not. They were sharp. Defensive. Almost frightened. "Do not go up there." 4 words. That is all it took to plant a seed of suspicion that would grow roots deeper than I ever imagined. I nodded. I did not argue. I have learned over the years that arguing with her only makes things worse. So I just stood there, watching her watch me, and I wondered what kind of secret required that much protection. She did not smile. She did not soften. She just turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the hallway with the attic door looming above me like a question I was not allowed to ask. That was the beginning. But to understand how I got there, standing in that hallway with my heart pounding and my mind racing, I need to go back. Back to when this house still felt like home. Back to when I believed we were building something together. Back to before the locks and the whispers and the rules that made no sense. I remember the day my son brought her home for the first time. She was beautiful. Not just in the way anyone can see, but in the way she carried herself. Confident. Poised. She had this warmth in her voice that made you want to trust her immediately. And I did. God help me, I did. I opened my arms and my home to her because I wanted my son to be happy. I wanted us to be a family. I imagined Sunday dinners and shared laughter and grandchildren running through these halls one day. I imagined love. What I got was something else entirely. At first, everything seemed fine. She smiled. She helped in the kitchen. She asked me questions about my life, my routines, my favorite recipes. I thought she cared. I thought she was trying to fit in. But looking back now, I realize she was not connecting. She was studying. Learning the layout. Figuring out how much space I took up so she could start taking it away. It started small. A drawer that used to hold my things suddenly became hers. A room I used for sewing was turned into her yoga space without anyone asking me. The chair I always sat in at dinner was quietly replaced with a new one, and when I tried to sit in my old spot, she smiled sweetly and said the new arrangement just made more sense. I let it go. I told myself it was just adjustment. Marriage means change. Families blend. I was not going to be that mother-in-law who made everything difficult. But then the locks started appearing. First on her bedroom door. Then on the office. Then on a storage closet that used to be open to everyone. I asked my son about it once, casually, not wanting to sound accusatory. He shrugged and said she liked her privacy. That she had expensive things she wanted to keep safe. I nodded. I understood. But something about it did not sit right. Because it was not just locks. It was the way she looked at me when I walked past certain rooms. The way conversations would stop the moment I entered a space. The way my son started avoiding my eyes when I asked simple questions. The house that had been mine for 30 years was slowly becoming a place where I felt like a guest. And not even a welcome one. Then came the rules. They were never presented as rules, of course. She was too smart for that. They came disguised as suggestions. As preferences. As things that just made sense if you really thought about it. She would say things like, "I think it is better if we keep the attic closed. There is so much dust up there and you know how your allergies are." Or, "Let me handle the upstairs cleaning. You have enough to worry about down here." Or, "I have been organizing some things up there and it is a bit of a mess right now. Best to just leave it alone for a while." Every time, her tone was light. Reasonable. But her eyes told a different story. They were watching. Measuring my reaction. Daring me to push back. I did not. I wish I had. Instead I played along. I stayed downstairs. I focused on the parts of the house she allowed me to occupy. I convinced myself that this was compromise. That this was what modern families looked like. That I was being flexible and understanding. But inside I was shrinking. Every locked door felt like a message. Every whispered phone call she took in another room felt like a secret. Every time my son chose her side over the truth, I felt a little more invisible. And the attic became the symbol of it all. It hung over me. Literally and figuratively. I would walk past that hallway and feel its presence. I would lie in bed at night and wonder what was up there that required so much protection. I would watch her come down those stairs with boxes or bags, always when she thought I was not looking, and I would feel my stomach twist with questions I was too afraid to ask. Because by then I knew. I knew that if I asked, she would lie. And worse, my son would back her up. He had chosen his side a long time ago, and it was not mine. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed my suspicions. I ignored my instincts. I told myself that keeping the peace was more important than knowing the truth. But peace built on lies is not peace at all. It is just a countdown to collapse. The day everything changed was unremarkable. It was a Tuesday. Gray skies. A soft drizzle tapping against the windows. She had gone out to run errands and my son was at work. The house was mine for a few hours, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I made myself tea. I sat by the window and watched the rain. I tried to read a book but the words would not stick. My mind kept drifting upstairs. To that door. To that warning. To the look in her eyes when she told me never to go up there. I tried to push it away. I tried to focus on anything else. But the more I tried to ignore it, the louder it became. What was she hiding? Why did it matter so much that I stayed away? What could possibly be up there that required this much secrecy? I set my tea down. My hands were trembling slightly, and I hated that. I hated that I had become someone who was afraid in her own home. Someone who second-guessed her own instincts. Someone who needed permission to walk through a house she had lived in for decades. I stood up. I walked to the hallway. I stood at the bottom of the attic stairs and stared up at that door. My heart was pounding. Not from fear. From something deeper. Something that had been buried under years of silence and obedience, and trying to be the easy mother-in-law who never caused problems. It was anger. And it was finally stronger than my fear. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each step felt like a rebellion. Each creak of the wood felt like a declaration. I was not sneaking. I was not hiding. I was reclaiming something that had been taken from me without my permission. My sense of home. My sense of self. My right to know what was happening under my own roof. When I reached the door, I hesitated. Not because I was afraid of what I would find. But because I knew that once I opened it, there would be no going back. The fragile pretense we had been living under would shatter. And I would have to deal with whatever came next. I took a breath. I turned the handle. The door opened. The attic was darker than I expected. The single window was covered with a heavy curtain, and only slivers of gray daylight slipped through the edges. The air was stale. Thick. Like it had not been disturbed in a long time. Even though I knew she had been up here recently. I stepped inside. The floor was covered with boxes. Dozens of them. Stacked in corners, lined against walls, labeled with names I did not recognize. I moved toward the nearest one and crouched down, my knees protesting slightly. I opened it. Inside were documents. Legal papers. Receipts. Photographs. Things that did not belong to her. Things that had my name on them. My late husband's name. Bank statements I had never seen. Property deeds I did not know existed. My hands started shaking. I opened another box. More papers. More records. More pieces of my life that had been taken and hidden and locked away like they were hers to control. And then I saw it. A folder tucked into the side of one of the boxes, marked with a single word in her handwriting. Transfer. I pulled it out. My fingers felt numb. My chest felt tight. I opened it and read the first page, and the world tilted. It was a property transfer document. For this house. My house. The house my husband and I had bought 40 years ago. The house we had raised our son in. The house that was supposed to be mine until the day I died. And she had been trying to take it. Not openly. Not through conversation or negotiation. But quietly. Carefully. Piece by piece. She had been gathering documents, forging signatures, building a case to claim ownership while I was still living in it. I sat down hard on the floor, the folder still in my hands, and I felt something crack open inside me. Not sadness. Not shock. Clarity. I do not know how long I sat there. It could have been minutes. It could have been an hour. Time felt strange and thick, like I was moving through water. But eventually, I heard the front door open downstairs. Her voice floated up, calling out my name in that bright false tone she always used when she wanted to seem caring. I did not answer. I stood up. I gathered the folder and several other documents. I walked down the attic stairs with my head high and my hands steady. She was in the kitchen, setting down grocery bags, still calling for me. I stepped into the doorway. She turned. Saw me. Saw the papers in my hands. And her face went white. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open, her hands frozen on the counter. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out what to say. How to spin this. How to make me doubt what I was holding in my hands. But I did not give her the chance. I set the documents on the table between us. I want you to explain this. My voice was calm. Steady. But underneath it was steel. She blinked. Swallowed. Her smile tried to return but it flickered and died. I do not know what you are talking about. Yes you do. I stepped closer. You have been in that attic for months. Going through my things. My husband's things. Gathering paperwork. Building a case to take this house from me. And I want to know why. Her face shifted. The mask cracked. For just a second, I saw something underneath. Something cold. Something calculating. Then she laughed. It was a light, dismissive sound, like I had just told a ridiculous joke. You are being paranoid. I was just organizing. There is no plan. You are imagining things. I picked up the transfer document and held it in front of her. Then explain this. Her eyes darted to the paper. Then back to me. The laugh faded. That is just a draft. I was helping you organize your estate. You are getting older and I thought it would be good to have things in order in case something happened. In case something happened. I repeated her words slowly, letting them hang in the air between us. You mean in case I died? She did not answer. I leaned forward. You were not organizing my estate. You were stealing my house. She opened her mouth to argue, but before she could speak, the front door opened again. My son walked in. He looked between us, sensing the tension immediately. His face tightened. What is going on? She turned to him, and just like that, the mask was back. Her eyes filled with tears. Her voice trembled. Your mother went through my things. She broke into the attic after I asked her not to. She is accusing me of terrible things and I do not understand why she hates me so much. I watched her performance with a strange kind of detachment. I had seen her manipulate before, but never this blatantly. Never with this much desperation. My son looked at me. Ma, what is she talking about? I held up the documents. Ask her why she has been forging property transfer papers. Ask her why she has been hiding my financial records in the attic. Ask her why she told me never to go up there. He took the papers from my hand. He read the first page. Then the second. His face changed. What is this? She stepped toward him, reaching for his arm. It is nothing. I was just trying to help. Your mother is confused. She does not understand. He pulled his arm away. Confused about what? This has my signature on it. I never signed this. The room went silent. She stared at him. He stared at the paper. And I stood there, watching the truth finally land. She tried to recover. She stammered something about making a mistake. About meaning well. About how she only wanted to help secure the future. About how she thought it was what he wanted. But the more she talked, the weaker it sounded. And my son, for the first time in years, looked at her like he was seeing someone he did not recognize. You forged my signature. It was not a question. It was a realization. She did not answer. He set the papers down on the table. He looked at me. And I saw something in his eyes I had not seen in a long time. Regret. Ma. I am so sorry. I nodded. I did not have words yet. My throat was too tight. He turned back to her. You need to leave. Her eyes went wide. What? You need to leave this house. No. She shook her head, tears spilling over. You cannot be serious. This is our home. We are married. You cannot just throw me out because your mother is upset. This is not about my mother being upset. This is about you committing fraud. This is about you lying to both of us. This is about you trying to steal from her. His voice was rising now. All the frustration and confusion and buried doubt was finally breaking through. I have made excuses for you for years. I have defended you. I have chosen you over my own instincts because I wanted to believe you were who you said you were. But I cannot do this anymore. She grabbed his arm. Please. We can fix this. It was a mistake. I will make it right. He pulled away. No. You will not. Because I do not trust you anymore. She left that night. Not quietly. Not gracefully. She screamed. She cried. She threatened lawyers and consequences and told my son he would regret this for the rest of his life. But he did not bend. And I stood in the doorway and watched her go, feeling something I had not felt in years. Free. The days that followed were strange. The house felt different. Lighter. Like something heavy had been lifted from the walls. My son and I talked. Really talked. For the first time in years, there were no secrets between us. No careful words. No avoiding the truth to keep the peace. He apologized. Over and over. For not seeing it sooner. For choosing silence over honesty. For letting her push me out of my own home. I forgave him. Not because everything was fine. But because he was my son, and I knew he had been manipulated just as much as I had. We went through the attic together. We found more than I ever expected. Documents she had been collecting for years. Plans she had been building slowly, carefully, waiting for the right moment to strike. It was not just about the house. It was about control. About erasing me piece by piece until there was nothing left. But she failed. Because I trusted my instincts. Because I opened that door. Because I refused to let fear keep me silent. Months have passed now. The divorce is moving forward. The legal mess is being sorted. The house is still mine, and it will stay that way. My son is healing. Slowly. He is learning to trust himself again. To recognize manipulation when he sees it. To understand that love should never require you to ignore the truth. And me? I am learning to take up space again. I rearranged the furniture. I unlocked every door. I threw open the windows and let the light pour in. The attic is empty now. Just dust and old memories. No more secrets. No more shadows. I go up there sometimes, just to remind myself that I am not afraid anymore. Because secrets always ask for a price. And the price is always higher than you think. They rot families from the inside. They turn love into suspicion. They make you a stranger in your own life. But truth, even when it hurts, even when it destroys the illusion of peace, is the only thing that sets you free. And I am free now. Not because everything is perfect. Not because the pain is gone. But because nothing is hidden anymore. The house feels honest again. And so do I. I still think about that day sometimes. The day I stood at the bottom of those stairs and made a choice. I think about how close I came to walking away. How easy it would have been to keep pretending. To keep swallowing my doubts. To keep living in a house full of locked doors and unanswered questions. But I did not. And that made all the difference. Because the truth is, we teach people how to treat us. And for years, I taught her that I would accept anything. That I would stay quiet. That I would let her take and take and take without ever pushing back. But that day, I took my power back. I opened the door she told me never to open. And I found myself on the other side. If you are listening to this and you feel that same unease I felt, that same quiet voice telling you something is wrong, I want you to know this. Trust it. Do not ignore it. Do not explain it away. Do not let anyone convince you that you are imagining things or being paranoid or causing problems. Your instincts are there for a reason. And you deserve to live in a home where you are not afraid to ask questions. Where you are not walking on eggshells. Where you do not need permission to exist fully. It will not be easy. It will not be comfortable. The truth often is not. But it is worth it. Because on the other side of that fear, on the other side of that confrontation, on the other side of that locked door, is freedom. And freedom, even when it comes with loss, is always better than a prison disguised as peace. The house is quiet now. But it is a different kind of quiet. Not the heavy, suffocating silence of secrets. But the calm, gentle quiet of a space where nothing needs to be hidden. I sit by the window in the mornings and drink my tea and watch the world wake up. And I feel something I have not felt in years. At home. Not just in this house. But in myself.
I've always been the kind of woman who finds peace in silence. The early morning hours when the world is still asleep, that's when I feel most alive. The sound of water boiling for tea. The soft rustle of curtains as I open the windows. The first light of dawn painting everything golden. For 37 years I've followed the same rhythm. Wake up before the sun. Pray. Make tea. Sit by the window with my thoughts. People used to say I was too quiet. Too calm. Too forgiving. Maybe they were right. Because I didn't see it coming. I didn't hear the storm building inside my own house until it was already thundering around me. It started small. Little things that made my heart pause just for a second before I convinced myself I was imagining it. Like the way my daughter-in-law Priya would suddenly end her phone calls when I entered the room. Her voice would shift from animated to flat in an instant. "Oh, nothing important, Ma," she'd say with that smile. That perfect, practiced smile. Or how she started locking her bedroom door during the day. "Just taking a nap," she'd explain. But I could hear her whispering inside. Quick, urgent whispers that stopped the moment I walked past. I told myself I was being paranoid. After all, she had been nothing but sweet to me. Hadn't she? She called me Ma with such warmth. She touched my feet every morning. She laughed at my stories and cooked my favorite dishes. But something had changed. I felt it in the air, thick and heavy like humidity before rain. The way she looked at me had shifted. There was something behind her eyes now. Something calculating. Cold. I remember one evening clearly. I was sitting in the living room, folding clothes from the laundry. The television was on, but I wasn't really watching. My mind was elsewhere, tangled in thoughts I couldn't quite name. Priya came out of her room, phone pressed to her ear. She didn't notice me at first. Yes, I told you it's almost ready," she was saying, her voice low and excited. "Just a few more weeks. Then we can finalize everything." She laughed. Not the soft, polite laugh she used around me. This was different. Sharper. Almost triumphant. Then she saw me. Her face changed so fast it was like watching a mask snap into place. "Ma. I didn't see you there," she said brightly, ending the call quickly. "Just talking to a friend about a surprise. For the family." "A surprise?" I asked gently. "Yes, Ma. You'll love it. But I can't tell you yet." She smiled again, that beautiful empty smile, and disappeared back into her room. I sat there with the half-folded shirt in my hands, my heart beating a little too fast. Something was wrong. I tried to talk to my son Vikram about it a few days later. We were having breakfast together. Priya had gone out, another one of her errands that she never explained. "Vikram," I began carefully, "have you noticed anything different about Priya lately?" He looked up from his phone, distracted. "Different? Like what?" "I don't know. She seems busy. Secretive, maybe?" He laughed. Not unkindly, but dismissively. "Ma, she's probably planning something nice. You know how she is. Always thinking of others. Always thinking of others." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But that night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the house. The hum of the refrigerator. The distant bark of a dog. And then, faintly, voices. Priya's voice. I got up slowly, careful not to make noise, and moved toward the hallway. Their bedroom door was slightly open. Just a crack. "I'm telling you it's fine," Priya was saying, her tone impatient. "She doesn't suspect anything. She's too trusting." My blood went cold. "And even if she does," Priya continued, "what can she do? She won't say anything. She never does. She's too scared of causing problems." I heard Vikram murmur something I couldn't make out. Priya laughed. "Exactly. By the time anyone realizes, it'll be too late." I stepped back, my hands trembling. Too late for what? I returned to my room and sat on the edge of my bed, my mind racing. Who was she talking about? Me? What didn't I suspect? I thought about all the times I'd given her the benefit of the doubt. All the times I'd ignored that uncomfortable feeling in my gut because I didn't want to be the difficult mother-in-law. The suspicious one. I'd worked so hard to be kind. To be welcoming. When Vikram first brought Priya home, I was overjoyed. She was beautiful, educated, well-spoken. She seemed perfect for him. I remember the wedding. How happy I was. How I held her hands and told her, "You're not just my daughter-in-law. You're my daughter now." She had tears in her eyes. "Thank you, Ma. I promise I'll take care of this family." And I believed her. I let her into my life completely. I shared my recipes, my routines, my stories. I gave her the keys to every cupboard, every drawer. I trusted her with everything. But now, sitting alone in the dark, I realized something that made my chest tighten with pain. I didn't know her at all. The next morning, I decided to pay closer attention. I watched the way she moved through the house. The way she smiled at me while her eyes stayed distant. The way she checked her phone constantly, always angling it away so I couldn't see the screen. I noticed how she had started dressing differently. More expensive clothes. New jewelry. "Where did you get that lovely necklace?" I asked her one afternoon, trying to sound casual. She touched it absently. "Oh, this? Vikram bought it for me." But I knew my son's salary. And I knew how much they spent on rent, groceries, bills. That necklace was real gold. I said nothing. Because I've learned over the years that silence can be more powerful than words. Silence lets you see what people don't want you to see. So I stayed quiet. I watched. I waited. And slowly, the pieces of a picture I didn't want to see began forming in my mind. Priya had been asking me questions lately. Casual questions that seemed innocent at the time. "Ma, do you have any savings?" "Ma, where do you keep your important documents?" "Ma, if something happened, who would you want to handle your finances?" I had answered honestly, never thinking twice. Now those questions echoed in my head like warnings I'd ignored. One evening, I found her in my room. I had gone out to buy vegetables and came home earlier than expected. As I climbed the stairs, I heard movement in my bedroom. I pushed the door open quietly. Priya was standing near my cupboard. My cupboard where I kept my personal things. My jewelry box. My passbook. She spun around, startled. "Ma, you're back already?" "I forgot my bag," I said slowly, looking at her, then at the cupboard. "What are you doing in here?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "Oh, I was just looking for that shawl you said I could borrow. Remember?" I had never said that. "It's in the other cupboard," I said quietly. "Oh. Silly me." She walked past me quickly, leaving the room. I stood there for a long moment, my heart pounding. Then I went to my cupboard and checked. Everything seemed in place. My jewelry box. My passbook. My documents. But something felt wrong. I opened the passbook. The last entry was from 3 months ago. I'd been meaning to update it, but I hadn't needed to withdraw anything. A chill ran down my spine. Why would she be near my passbook? That night I barely touched my dinner. "Ma, are you okay?" Vikram asked. "You seem upset." I looked at him. My son. My only child. The boy I'd raised alone after his father passed away. I wanted to tell him everything. Every worry. Every suspicion. But what if I was wrong? What if I ruined his marriage over my paranoia? "I'm fine," I said softly. "Just tired." Priya was watching me from across the table. Her eyes sharp, assessing. She knew I was onto something. And I knew she wasn't going to stop whatever she was planning. As I lay in bed that night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to find out the truth first. Because I've been silent my whole life. I've been the peacekeeper. The one who never makes waves. But there's a difference between being quiet and being weak. And she was about to learn that difference. The storm in my house was no longer quiet. It was coming. And I was ready. The backstory no one asked for. Before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand how I got here. You need to know the woman I was before this house fell silent. I wasn't always this cautious. This watchful. There was a time when I believed the best in everyone. When I gave without counting the cost. My husband used to laugh about it. "You'd give away your last piece of bread to a stranger," he'd say, shaking his head fondly. He was right. Maybe that's why it hurt so much when trust became a weapon against me. I was 22 when I got married. Young, naive, full of dreams. My husband, Rajesh, was a good man. Hardworking. Kind. He drove a taxi during the day and studied at night, determined to give us a better life. We didn't have much, but we had each other. When Vikram was born, I thought my life was complete. I remember holding him for the first time, this tiny, perfect human, and promising him silently that I would give him everything I never had. Education. Stability. Love. For 5 beautiful years we were happy. And then Rajesh got sick. It started with a cough he couldn't shake. Then the fatigue. Then the diagnosis that shattered our world. Lung cancer. Stage 4. He was gone within 6 months. I was 27 years old, widowed, with a 5-year-old son and no savings. Those were the darkest days of my life. I remember sitting on the floor of our tiny apartment after the funeral, holding Vikram while he cried for his papa, wondering how I was going to survive. But I couldn't afford to break. So I didn't. I took a job as a cook in a small restaurant. The owner, an elderly woman named Lakshmi Auntie, took pity on me and let me bring Vikram to work. He'd sit in the corner doing his homework while I chopped vegetables, stirred pots, and served customers. At night, I'd take on tailoring work. Hemming saris, stitching blouses, mending curtains. I slept 4, maybe 5 hours a night. But Vikram never missed school. He never went hungry. He never wore torn clothes. I made sure of that. As he grew older, he started to understand. He'd try to help. "Ma, I can work too," he'd say. "I can drop out of school, Anne." "Never," I'd interrupt him firmly. "You will finish your education. You will have the life your father dreamed for you." And he did. He studied hard. Got scholarships. Worked part-time during college. Graduated with honors. When he got his first job as a software engineer, I cried. Not sad tears. Proud tears. Everything I'd sacrificed, every sleepless night, every aching muscle, it was all worth it. "Ma," he said, holding my hands, "I'm going to take care of you now. You'll never have to work again." And he kept that promise. He moved us into a better apartment. He took over all the bills. He insisted I retire. "Rest, Ma. You've earned it." For the first time in decades, I could breathe. I started a small savings account. Nothing much. Just whatever I could set aside from the household money Vikram gave me, plus the little bit I earned from occasional catering jobs I still took on, not because I needed to, but because I enjoyed it. Over 10 years, I managed to save 3 lakh rupees. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. My security. My peace of mind. I never told Vikram the exact amount. I didn't want him to worry or insist on giving me more. This was my independence. And then Vikram met Priya. He was 32. I'd been gently suggesting marriage for years, but he'd always say, "When I find the right person, Ma." When he finally brought her home, I understood the weight. She was stunning. Fair skin, long hair, elegant clothes. She worked in marketing, spoke fluent English, carried herself with confidence. I felt intimidated, honestly. She was from a different world than us. Her family was well off. Educated. Sophisticated. Will she be happy with our simple life? I asked Vikram privately. He smiled. "Ma, she's not like that. She's humble. Down to earth. You'll see." And at first it seemed he was right. Priya was charming during the courtship. She'd visit our home and insist on helping in the kitchen. She'd compliment my cooking, ask for recipes, touch my feet respectfully. "Auntie, you're such an inspiration," she told me once. "Raising Vikram alone, working so hard, you're a strong woman." I was touched. When they got engaged, she called me one evening. "Ma," she said, she'd started calling me that already, "I just want you to know that I'm not just marrying Vikram. I'm marrying into this family. You're going to be my mother now." My eyes filled with tears. "Beta, I'm so lucky to have you." The wedding was beautiful. Her family spared no expense. Vikram wanted to contribute, but they insisted on paying for everything. "You're giving us your son," Priya's father said warmly. "Let us handle this." I felt welcomed. Respected. Priya moved in with us after the wedding. It was decided that she'd continue working and we'd all live together. "I don't want you to be alone, Ma," Vikram said. "We're a family." The first few months were wonderful. Priya would wake up early with me, help with breakfast, chat about her work, seek my advice on small things. "Ma, what do you think I should wear to this meeting?" "Ma, can you teach me how to make that dal the way you do?" "Ma, Vikram is so lucky to have a mother like you." I felt needed. Loved. I gave her everything I had. Not just my time and attention, but my trust. When she asked if I could watch her jewelry sometimes because the locker at work isn't safe, I said of course. When she needed money for a family emergency and didn't want to bother Vikram, I gave her 20,000 rupees from my savings without hesitation. "I'll return it next month, Ma, I promise," she said, hugging me. She never did. But I didn't mind. She was family now. When she asked where I kept my important documents, I showed her. Just in case something happens to me, I explained, you should know where everything is. She nodded solemnly. You're thinking ahead, Ma. That's wise. I even added her name as a nominee on my savings account. Vikram didn't know. He would have protested, said it wasn't necessary. But I wanted Priya to feel secure. To know that I trusted her completely. You're like my own daughter, I told her when we went to the bank together. She squeezed my hand. You're the mother I always wished I had, Ma. Looking back now, I can see how foolish I was. How every question she asked had a purpose. How every compliment was a strategy. How I handed her the keys to my life and thought I was being loving. But at the time I saw none of it. I only saw the daughter-in-law I'd always wanted. The companion in my old age. The woman who would care for me the way I'd cared for Vikram. The signs were there, though. Small things I dismissed. Like the time I overheard her on the phone with a friend. Living with a mother-in-law? She was saying, her voice different. Harder. Girl, it's exhausting. I can't do anything without her noticing. When I walked into the room, she laughed brightly. Oh, Ma, I was just joking with my friend. You know how it is. I laughed too, but something twisted in my chest. Or the time Vikram mentioned that the household expenses seemed higher than usual. Are you sure, Ma? We're spending $30,000 a month now? I was confused. I'm using the same amount as always. Priya jumped in smoothly. Vikram, inflation is real. Groceries are expensive now. And Ma is buying better quality ingredients. Nothing wrong with that. He accepted it. I didn't think about it again until much later. But the moment I should have paid attention, the moment that should have woken me up, came about 8 months after the wedding. I needed to use Priya's laptop to print something. Mine was old and slow. She'd left it open on the dining table. As I moved the mouse, a document popped up on the screen. It was a property listing. For a house. A very expensive house. I frowned, confused. We weren't looking to move. Then I saw another tab open. A bank statement. Not our bank. I shouldn't have looked. I know that. But something made me click on it. It showed transactions. Deposits. Withdrawals. 50,000 here. 70,000 there. And at the bottom, a current balance. 4 lakh rupees. My heart stopped. Where did that money come from? Priya didn't earn that much. Neither did Vikram, and I knew he was sending money to his account for his own savings. Before I could process it, I heard footsteps. I quickly closed the tabs and printed what I needed. Priya appeared in the doorway. Done, Ma? Yes, beta. Thank you. She smiled. But her eyes scanned the laptop screen before she took it away. That night I couldn't stop thinking about it. 4 lakh rupees. I told myself there must be an explanation. Maybe her family had given her money. Maybe she'd saved it before marriage. It was none of my business. But the number kept circling in my mind. 4 lakhs. I had 3 lakhs in my savings. It was just a coincidence. Wasn't it? 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of pretending everything was normal while my mind refused to let go of what I'd seen. 4 lakh rupees. I tried to convince myself it didn't matter. That I was being paranoid. That there was a logical explanation I simply didn't know about. But the doubt had planted itself deep, and it grew a little more each day. I started noticing other things. How Priya had stopped asking me for help with anything. How she'd become distant, polite but cold. How she spent more time in her room with the door locked. How she'd glance at me sometimes with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something between guilt and defiance. And then came the day that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember because Tuesdays were when I usually went to the temple. But that morning I woke up with an inexplicable urge to go to the bank instead. Looking back, I wonder if it was intuition. Or maybe God's way of protecting me. I got dressed quietly, not mentioning my plans to anyone. Priya had already left for work. Vikram was in the shower, getting ready for his office. I took my passbook from the cupboard, the one I hadn't updated in months, and walked to the bank. It was a 15-minute walk. I've always liked walking. It clears my mind. The bank was relatively empty at that hour. I went straight to the counter. I'd like to update my passbook, please, I said to the young man behind the glass. He took it with a smile. Of course, ma'am. Just a moment. I waited, watching the morning light stream through the bank windows. The machine made its usual clicking sounds as it printed the entries. When he handed it back to me, he said, "Is there anything else I can help you with today?" "No, thank you," I replied, taking the passbook. I was about to leave when something made me stop. I opened the passbook. Just to glance. Just to see the balance and feel that small sense of security I always felt knowing my savings were safe. My eyes found the number at the bottom. I blinked. Read it again. The blood drained from my face. Balance, 12,450 Indian rupees. 12,000. I had 3 lakh rupees in this account. My hands started trembling. This had to be a mistake. A printing error. Something wrong with the machine. I stumbled back to the counter. "Excuse me," my voice came out shaky. There's a mistake here. This balance is wrong." The young man looked concerned. "Let me check, ma'am." He typed on his computer, his eyes scanning the screen. Then his expression changed. Became carefully neutral. "Ma'am, according to our records, this is the correct balance. There have been several withdrawals over the past 4 months." "Withdrawals?" My voice was barely a whisper. "I didn't make any withdrawals." He hesitated. "Ma'am, perhaps you should speak with the manager. Let me call him for you." Everything after that felt like I was moving through water. The manager, a middle-aged man with sympathetic eyes, led me to his office. He pulled up my account on his computer. "Mrs. Sharma, I can see here that there have been 5 withdrawals. Let me show you the dates and amounts." He turned the screen toward me. June 18th, 50,000 Indian rupees. July 2nd, 60,000 Indian rupees. July 28th, 70,000 Indian rupees. August 15th, 55,000 Indian rupees. September 3rd, 53,000 Indian rupees. I stared at the numbers, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. But I didn't. I never. "Ma'am, do you have a nominee on this account?" He asked gently. "Yes," I whispered. "My daughter-in-law." His expression told me everything. "Ma'am, these withdrawals were made by the nominee. With proper identification and authorization. It's all legal according to bank policy." "Legal?" The word hit me like a slap. "But I didn't give permission," I said, my voice breaking. "I never said she could take this money." "I understand, ma'am. However, when you add someone as a nominee with withdrawal rights, they have legal access to the funds. Did you sign any forms giving her this authorization?" I thought back to that day at the bank with Priya. The form she'd helped me fill out. The way she'd pointed to lines and said, "Just sign here, ma. It's standard procedure." I'd trusted her. I'd signed whatever she'd put in front of me. "Ma'am, I'm very sorry," the manager was saying. "But unless you can prove fraud or forgery, there's nothing we can do. The withdrawals were made legally." I sat there, unable to move, unable to breathe. My entire life savings. Gone. Stolen. By the woman I'd welcomed into my home. The woman I'd called daughter. "Ma'am, would you like some water?" The manager's voice seemed to come from far away. I shook my head and somehow stood up. "If you want to file a complaint, I can give you the necessary forms." "No," I said quietly. "Thank you. I need to go." I walked out of that bank like a ghost. The world looked the same. The sun was still shining. People were still going about their lives. But everything had changed. I don't remember walking home. I must have, because suddenly I was standing in front of my building, staring up at the windows. My home. Except it didn't feel like home anymore. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last. When I opened the door, the house was empty. Quiet. I went to my room and sat on the bed, the passbook still clutched in my hand. 3 lakh rupees. It had taken me 10 years to save that money. 10 years of setting aside every spare rupee. Of saying no to things I wanted. Of planning for a future where I wouldn't be a burden to anyone. That money was my independence. My dignity. And she had taken it. Not all at once. That would have been too obvious. No, she'd been smart about it. Taking it in chunks over months while I remained clueless. While I smiled at her and cooked her favorite meals and treated her like my own child. How long had she been planning this? I thought about all those questions she'd asked. All that sweetness. All those moments when she'd made me feel loved and valued. It was all a lie. Every word. Every gesture. Every "I love you, Ma." A performance. And I'd been the perfect fool. I heard the front door open. Footsteps in the hallway. Ma? Are you home? Priya's voice. I sat frozen, unable to respond. She appeared in my doorway, still in her work clothes, that familiar smile on her face. There you are. I thought maybe you'd gone to the temple. She stopped mid-sentence. She'd seen the passbook in my hand. For just a second I saw it. The mask slipped. Her eyes widened and something like panic flashed across her face. Then it was gone. Replaced by concern. Perfect false concern. Ma, are you okay? You look pale. I looked at her. Really looked at her. This stranger wearing my daughter-in-law's face. I went to the bank today, I said quietly. She went very still. Oh. Her voice was careful now. Controlled. My money is gone. Silence. She didn't even pretend to be surprised. Ma, she began, her tone soothing, I can explain. You stole from me. The words hung in the air between us. She took a breath and I watched her decide which mask to wear. Which story to tell. She chose the victim. Her eyes filled with tears. Ma, please don't say that. I didn't steal anything. I borrowed it. I was going to tell you, I swear, but there was an emergency. 5 emergencies? I asked, my voice eerily calm. Over 4 months? She bit her lip. My mother was sick. She needed money for treatment. I was too embarrassed to ask Vikram, and I knew you'd understand. Your mother? I interrupted. I spoke to her last week. She seemed perfectly healthy. I watched her scramble. It was a different kind of illness. Mental health. She didn't want anyone to know. Stop. My voice came out stronger than I expected. Just stop lying. She stared at me, tears still clinging to her lashes, but her eyes had gone hard. I saw the property listing on your computer, I continued. I saw the account with 4 lakh rupees. You've been planning something and you used my money to do it. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she wiped her eyes, and when she looked at me again, the sweetness was completely gone. So what? She said coldly. What are you going to do about it? The sudden shift took my breath away. You added me as a nominee, she continued, her voice sharp now. You gave me legal access. The bank confirmed it's all legitimate. So technically, Ma, I didn't steal anything. You gave it to me. I felt like I'd been slapped. I trusted you, I whispered. She laughed. Actually laughed. That's your problem. You trust too easily. You're too nice. Too naive. She crossed her arms. You really thought I wanted to live with my mother-in-law forever? In this tiny apartment? Each word was a knife. Vikram and I need our own space. Our own life. And that requires money. Money he won't take from his salary because he's too busy sending it to you. He doesn't send me anything, I said, shocked. He pays the bills. Exactly. Bills for this place. For you. Do you know how much we could be saving if we didn't have to support you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Beta, I said, my voice shaking. I raised him alone. I worked myself to the bone to give him everything. And now he's supposed to be grateful forever? She rolled her eyes. That was your choice. Your responsibility. He doesn't owe you his entire life. Tears were streaming down my face now. Why? I asked. If you felt this way, why did you pretend? Why did you act like you loved me? She shrugged. Because it was easier. Because Vikram expects it. Because playing the loving daughter-in-law meant you'd trust me. And you did. She smiled, cold and victorious. You made it so easy, Ma. I felt something break inside me. Not just my heart. Something deeper. The part of me that believed in goodness. In family. In love. Does Vikram know? I managed to ask. Of course not. And he won't believe you if you tell him. She moved closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Because I'll deny everything. I'll cry and say you're being paranoid. That you're getting old and confused. And he'll believe me, Ma. Because he loves me. And because you've always been too weak to fight back. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and if you try to make trouble, I'll make your life hell. I'll turn Vikram against you completely. I'll make sure you end up in some old age home, alone and forgotten. She left the room, her footsteps fading down the hallway. I sat there in the silence, the passbook still in my trembling hands. She was right about one thing. I had always been weak. I'd spent my life avoiding conflict, keeping peace, making everyone else comfortable. Even now, part of me wanted to stay quiet. To pretend this conversation never happened. To protect Vikram from the truth about who he'd married. But as I sat there in my room, looking at that passbook with its devastating balance, something inside me began to shift. She'd called me weak. Naive. Too nice. Maybe I had been. But she'd made one mistake. She assumed I'd stay that way. I stood up slowly, wiping my tears. I walked to my cupboard and pulled out a small box I kept hidden in the back. Inside were documents. Papers. Proof of everything I'd ever owned, ever done, ever been. Including copies of the forms I'd signed at the bank. I'd always been careful with paperwork. A habit from my years of managing everything alone. I took out my phone, the simple one Vikram had given me, the one Priya thought I barely knew how to use. I did know how to use it though. And I knew how to take photographs. I photographed every page of my passbook. Every document in my box. Every piece of evidence I had. Then I sat down and started writing. Not a letter. Not a complaint. A record. Every conversation. Every lie. Every moment I'd ignored because I didn't want to believe the truth. I wrote it all down, my hand steady now, my mind clear. Priya thought I was weak. She thought I'd hide in my room and cry and accept my fate. She was wrong. Because there's a difference between being kind and being foolish. And I'd finally learned the difference. She wanted a fight? I'd give her one. But not the way she expected. Not with screaming or drama. With something far more powerful. The truth. The next few days were the hardest of my life. Harder even than when I lost my husband. Because at least then I knew who I was grieving. I knew the loss was real and honest. But this was different. I had to live with her. Smile at her. Pretend I didn't know what she'd done. Because I needed time. Time to think. To plan. To gather myself. Priya, meanwhile, acted like nothing had happened. She went about her routine with that same cheerful facade, humming while she got ready for work, asking me if I needed anything from the market. As if she hadn't just destroyed me 3 days ago. As if she hadn't admitted to stealing my life savings and threatening me. The audacity of it was almost impressive. I played along. No, Beta, I'm fine, I'd say with a smile. Let me make tea for you, Ma, she'd offer sweetly when Vikram was around. And I'd accept, sipping the tea while watching her perform. Because that's what it was. A performance. She was so good at it. So practiced. I wondered how many people she'd fooled before me. Vikram noticed nothing. He'd come home from work tired and she'd rush to him with such perfect concern. How was your day, baby? You look exhausted. Come, I'll make you dinner. Then she'd glance at me with that secret mocking smile when he wasn't looking. A smile that said, see? He's mine. Not yours. It took everything I had not to react. But I'd learned something important over those few days. Silence is powerful. People underestimate the quiet ones. They think silence means weakness, ignorance, or acceptance. They're wrong. Silence is strategy. While Priya performed, I watched. While she smiled, I learned. I started paying attention to everything. Every phone call she made. Every time she left the house. Every moment she thought I wasn't looking. I saw the way she checked her phone constantly, always angling it away from view. The way she'd disappear into her room for hours with the door locked. The way she'd dress up for work meetings that somehow always happened in the evening. One night she announced she'd be late coming home. Client dinner, she explained to Vikram. You know how it is. He nodded, understanding. No problem. Ma and I will eat together. After she left, I was washing dishes when Vikram came into the kitchen. Ma, can I ask you something? I looked up. Of course, Beta. He hesitated, then said, Is everything okay between you and Priya? My heart skipped. Why do you ask? I don't know. You both seem. I can't explain it. Distant, maybe? He frowned. She hasn't said anything, but I feel like something's off. This was my chance. I could tell him everything right now. Show him the passbook. Tell him what she'd said to me. But I remembered her threat. He won't believe you. He'll think you're confused. Getting old. And looking at my son's tired face, his worried eyes, I realized she might be right. He loved her. He'd married her. He'd built a life with her. If I spoke now without proof, without a plan, I'd lose him. So I lied. Everything's fine, Beta. Maybe we're both just tired. Nothing to worry about. His face relaxed. Okay, good. I thought maybe. I don't know. Never mind. He hugged me. I'm glad you two get along so well. It means everything to me. I hugged him back, my heart breaking. You have no idea what she's doing to us, I thought. To me. To you. But I said nothing. After he went to bed, I stayed up late in the living room, unable to sleep. Around midnight, I heard a car pull up outside. Priya came in quietly, thinking everyone was asleep. But I was sitting in the dark living room, waiting. She didn't see me at first. She kicked off her heels, checked her phone, smiled at something on the screen. Then she noticed me. She jumped slightly. Ma. You scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark? Couldn't sleep, I said calmly. She recovered quickly. Oh. Well, I'm exhausted. That client dinner went on forever. She yawned dramatically. How was the dinner? I asked. Good. Productive. She was already moving toward her room. What did you eat? She paused. What? At the dinner. What did you eat? Her eyes narrowed. Why are you asking me this? I shrugged. Just curious. You said it went on forever. Must have been a big meal. Italian, she said shortly. Pasta. Whatever. Good night, Ma. She disappeared into her room. I sat there in the dark, thinking. Her clothes didn't smell like food. They smelled like perfume. Expensive perfume. And she'd been carrying a shopping bag I'd seen her hide behind her back. Client dinner. I didn't believe her for a second. The next morning, I did something I'd never done before. I went through her things. Not everything. Just the shopping bag she'd hidden in the bottom of her closet. Inside was a dress. A beautiful, expensive dress with the price tag still attached. 25,000 rupees. My hands shook. That was almost double what remained in my bank account. Where was she getting this money? I already knew the answer. From me. She'd stolen my savings and was spending it on herself. On clothes, jewelry, her secret plans. While pretending to love me. While calling me Ma. I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and left the room. That afternoon, my neighbor Mrs. Patel came over for tea. She was a kind woman, around my age, a widow like me. We'd been friendly for years, but I'd never told her about my personal problems. Today, though, I needed to talk to someone. We sat on the balcony, sipping chai, watching the street below. You seem troubled, Lakshmi, she said gently. Is everything all right? I hesitated, then decided to trust her. If someone close to you betrayed you, I began carefully, but you had no way to prove it, what would you do? She looked at me sharply. This is about your daughter-in-law, isn't it? I was surprised. How did you? I've been watching, she said quietly. The way she treats you when your son isn't around. The way she talks to you. I've seen it, Lakshmi. Tears filled my eyes. You have? She nodded. Last week, I was on my balcony when I heard her shouting at you. Something about you being in her way. I almost came over, but then your son came home and she changed completely. Started acting sweet. It was such a relief to hear someone else say it. To know I wasn't imagining things. She stole from me, I whispered. My savings. Everything I had. Mrs. Patel's face hardened. Do you have proof? Legal proof? No. She made sure of that. Everything she did was technically allowed because I trusted her. Then you need to get proof, she said firmly. Real proof. Evidence that can't be denied. How? She thought for a moment. Does she know you suspect her? Yes. She admitted everything to me. But only when we were alone. Then she'll be careful now, Mrs. Patel said. You'll have to be smarter. Watch her. Document everything. And when the time is right, expose her. But what if Vikram doesn't believe me? Then you make him see the truth, she said, her voice strong. You're his mother. You raised him to be a good man. Trust that goodness. Give him proof he can't ignore. After she left, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope. I wasn't alone in this. And I wasn't going to let Priya win. Over the next week, I became a detective in my own home. I noted every time she left the house, where she said she was going, when she returned. I took pictures of her new clothes, new jewelry, new bags, all things she claimed were gifts from Vikram, but that I knew we couldn't afford. I saved every receipt I found in the trash. Every credit card statement that came in the mail. I started recording our conversations on my phone, keeping it in my pocket, just in case she said something incriminating. I was building a case. Not for the police, I knew the law was on her side there. But for my son. For the day when I'd have to show him who he'd really married. One evening, I overheard her on the phone again. She was in the bedroom, door closed, but I stood outside, phone recording. No, he still doesn't know anything, she was saying, her voice low and excited. I told you, his mother is harmless. She won't do anything. A pause. The apartment will be ready by December. Yes, I have enough for the down payment now. Once we move, I'll handle the rest. He'll never even question where the money came from. My blood ran cold. She was planning to move them out. Using my money to buy an apartment. And she'd convinced Vikram it was a good idea, I was sure of it. He'd mentioned recently that Priya thought they should eventually get their own place. For privacy, she'd told him. He'd been hesitant. But what about Ma? We won't abandon her, Priya had said sweetly. She can visit anytime. But don't you want our own space? To start our own family? I'd watched him consider it. Watched him start to believe that maybe it was time. She was so clever. She wasn't pushing him. Just planting seeds. Making him think it was his idea. And once they moved, she'd slowly cut me out completely. I'd become the mother-in-law who visited occasionally, who was tolerated but not wanted. And eventually I'd be forgotten. That night, lying in bed, I made a decision. I was done being passive. Done watching. Done waiting. It was time to act. But not recklessly. Priya had threatened to turn Vikram against me, to put me in an old-age home. She had power because she was smart, calculating, and patient. If I wanted to beat her, I had to be smarter. More calculating. More patient. I had to make her expose herself. Not to me, but to Vikram. In a way he couldn't deny or explain away. And I knew exactly how to do it. Sunday morning arrived with the kind of clarity that only comes after sleepless nights spent planning. I woke up before dawn as always, but this time my mind wasn't troubled. It was focused. I knew what I had to do. For weeks I'd been gathering evidence, documenting lies, watching the woman who'd stolen from me continue her performance. But evidence meant nothing if no one saw it. And I'd realized something important. I couldn't just tell Vikram the truth. I had to show him. In a way he couldn't dismiss or deny. I made my tea and sat by the window, watching the sun rise, turning the sky from dark purple to soft orange. Beautiful. I'd always found peace in these quiet moments. They reminded me that no matter how dark the night, morning always came. And my morning was coming. Around 8, Vikram woke up. He found me in the kitchen, already preparing breakfast. "Morning, Ma," he said, hugging me from behind like he used to do when he was little. My heart ached. I'd missed this closeness. These simple moments. Priya had been slowly stealing them, pulling him away from me inch by inch. "Beta," I said, turning to face him, "I need to talk to you about something." He looked concerned immediately. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. But I've been thinking. I'd like to organize a small puja at home. Next Saturday. For your father's death anniversary." His expression softened. "Oh, Ma. Of course. That's a beautiful idea. I'd like to invite some relatives. Your uncle, aunt, cousins. Mrs. Patel from next door. Maybe a few others. Whatever you want," he said, squeezing my hand. "I'll help with everything." "Thank you, Beta." I smiled. "Can you ask Priya if she's comfortable with it? I don't want to impose." Right on cue, Priya emerged from the bedroom, already dressed for the day in an expensive kurta I'd never seen before. "Ask me what?" she said cheerfully. Vikram explained about the puja. I watched her face carefully. For just a fraction of a second, I saw irritation flash in her eyes. She didn't want guests. Didn't want family around who might notice things. But she recovered beautifully. "What a lovely idea, Ma," she said, coming over to touch my shoulder. "Of course we should do it. Papa deserves to be honored." She'd started calling my late husband Papa recently. It made my skin crawl. "Thank you, Beta," I said quietly. Over the next week, I made my preparations. But not the ones they thought. Yes, I arranged for the priest. Yes, I planned the menu and sent invitations. But I also did something else. I spoke to Vikram's uncle, my late husband's brother, on the phone. "Bia," I said carefully. I need your help with something delicate. He was a lawyer, retired now, but still sharp. I told him everything. The stolen money. The threats. The manipulation. I sent him photos of all my evidence. Lakshmi, he said, his voice heavy with anger, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I needed to be sure. And because I need Vikram to see the truth himself. Not hear it from me. What do you need me to do? Just be there on Saturday. And when the time comes, I'll need you to explain the legal aspects. So Vikram understands what's really happened. I'll be there, he promised. And Lakshmi? I'm proud of you. For not staying silent. His words brought tears to my eyes. I also spoke to Mrs. Patel again. The puja is a trap, I told her honestly. For Priya. She smiled grimly. Good. What do you need from me? Just watch. Listen. If she says or does anything revealing, I need witnesses. You'll have them, she assured me. I spent the days leading up to Saturday acting completely normal. Priya had no idea what was coming. She helped me with preparations, playing the dutiful daughter-in-law role perfectly. Ma, should I make the sweets or will you? She asked. Let's do it together, Beta. We stood side by side in the kitchen, rolling laddus, and I wondered if she felt any guilt at all. If somewhere inside her was even a shred of regret for what she'd done. But when I looked at her face, concentrated, calm, slightly bored, I saw nothing. No conscience. No remorse. Just a woman waiting for this inconvenient family gathering to be over. Friday night, Vikram came home with flowers. For the puja tomorrow, he explained, handing them to me. Then he pulled out another bouquet. And these are for you, Ma. Just because. I hugged him tight, fighting back tears. Thank you, Beta. You've always been such a good son. Because I had the best mother, he said simply. Priya watched this exchange from the doorway, her expression unreadable. That night I barely slept. Tomorrow would change everything. Either Vikram would finally see the truth, or I would lose him forever. There was no middle ground anymore. I prayed. For strength. For courage. For justice. And for my son to have the wisdom to see what was right in front of him. Saturday morning arrived cold and cloudy, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Guests started arriving around 9. Vikram's uncle and aunt came first. Uncle pulled me aside briefly. Ready? He whispered. I nodded. Ready. Cousins arrived. Neighbors. Friends I hadn't seen in months. The house filled with voices, warmth, life. Priya played hostess beautifully, serving tea, making small talk, smiling her practiced smile. But I caught Uncle watching her with a lawyer's sharp eyes. Assessing. Judging. The puja itself was beautiful. The priest chanted Sanskrit verses. We offered flowers and fruits to the deities. I lit the lamp in front of my husband's photograph and felt his presence somehow. Give me strength, I prayed silently. Help me do what's right. After the ceremony, everyone settled in the living room, eating, chatting. This was the moment I'd been planning for. I stood up, my legs shaky but my voice steady. Everyone, thank you so much for coming today. It means so much to me to have family here, honoring my husband's memory. People smiled, nodded. These past years haven't been easy, I continued. Raising Vikram alone. Working. Struggling. But I managed. I saved every rupee I could, planning for the future. Vikram looked at me curiously. Where was I going with this? I saved 3 lakh rupees over 10 years, I said clearly. The room went quiet. Ma, Vikram said uncertainly, why are you telling everyone this? I looked at him. My son. My whole world. Because that money is gone. His face went pale. What? What do you mean gone? Stolen, I said simply. Priya stood up abruptly. Ma, this isn't the time. Sit down, Uncle said firmly. His lawyer voice. The one that made people obey. She sat, her face flushed. Vikram looked between us, confused and frightened. Ma, what's going on? I pulled out my passbook from my purse. For months ago, I had 3 lakh rupees in my savings account. I went to the bank 2 weeks ago to update my passbook. I opened it, showing the pages. This is what I found. I handed it to him. He stared at the numbers. The withdrawals. The devastating final balance. 12,000, he whispered. But how? Who? Ask your wife, I said quietly. Every eye turned to Priya. She stood again, her voice shaking, but I couldn't tell if it was fear or rage. This is ridiculous. Ma is confused. She's been acting strange lately. Haven't you noticed, Vikram? She's getting old, paranoid. I have proof, I interrupted calmly. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos. These are copies of bank records showing withdrawals made by the nominee on my account. I looked at Vikram. The nominee I added 4 months after the wedding. Priya. You made me a nominee? Priya tried, her voice desperate now. I don't remember that. Maybe you forgot, Ma. I have the signed forms, Uncle said, pulling papers from his bag. Lakshmi sent them to me. Your signature is right here, Priya. Next to your mother-in-law's. Priya's face drained of color. Vikram was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. Priya? His voice broke. Tell me this isn't true. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it? I asked, my voice stronger now. Explain the 50,000 rupees you withdrew in June. The 60,000 in July. The 70,000 in August. My mother was sick. I needed. Your mother is fine, Mrs. Patel interrupted. I spoke to her last week at the market. Priya spun toward her, betrayed. You're ganging up on me. Explain this, I said, pulling up another photo on my phone. The dress. The price tag. 25,000 rupees for one dress. Where did that money come from? Vikram bought it for me. I didn't, Vikram said quietly. Dangerously quiet. I've never seen that dress. The room was silent except for Priya's ragged breathing. She looked around at all the faces staring at her. Judging her. Seeing her. And something in her snapped. Fine. She shouted. Yes, I took the money. So what? She gave me access. It was legal. Gasps around the room. Vikram stood up slowly. You admitted it. You actually just admitted it. She gave it to me. Priya insisted, her voice rising hysterically. She signed the forms. She trusted me. That's her fault, not mine. You stole from my mother, Vikram said, each word like ice. I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. With what money? Uncle asked sharply. You've been spending it. On clothes, jewelry. My sources tell me you're also putting a down payment on an apartment. An apartment your husband knows nothing about. Priya froze. Vikram turned to me. Is that true? I heard her on the phone, I said. Planning to move you both out. Using my money to do it. For a long moment no one spoke. Then Vikram said in a voice I'd never heard from him before. Get out. Priya blinked. What? Get out of my mother's house. Vikram, please let me explain. You just did, he said. You stole from her. You lied to me. You planned to take me away from her using money you stole. His voice was shaking now. Get out. Now. You can't throw me out. I'm your wife. And she's my mother. He roared. The woman who sacrificed everything for me. Who loved me when I had nothing. Who trusted you because I asked her to. Tears were streaming down his face now. I will never forgive you for this, he said. Never. Priya looked around the room one last time, her face a mask of rage and humiliation. Then she grabbed her purse and stormed out. The door slammed behind her. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Vikram turned to me, his face crumbling. Ma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And my son, my strong grown son, collapsed into my arms and sobbed.